About. Honestly, John, been thinking about a couple of different topics, things that are always back and forth. The rule of cool versus rules as written.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good one. There's a lot of things DMs have that are a bit different, like I always find as a player that some DMs just like to hack and slash and some actually like to give you a story.
Yeah, that's another really good point to get into. Then, since we're already talking about DMs and how they think, why not get into how DMs prepare for the game?
What do you mean by prepare for the game?
Some of them sit down and they write out a small novella. Some of them sit by the seat of their pants.
Oh, so you mean like whether they improv it or whether they like super develop their backgrounds and stuff?
Yeah.
Cool.
I think those are things we should talk about tonight.
Sounds like a plan. Let's do that.
All right. Well, that means the coffee's brewed. The day is at its end. This is Steve.
And John. So pull up a chair, break out your dice, and get ready for another episode of
The BullCritter's Corner. Well, we'll cover kind of the flaws and the pros or benefits, the pros and cons. That's what I was trying to say, the pros and cons. As we move through it, once we get to the end of each one of the topics, we'll talk about how to kind of feel out the pulse of your group or the mindset of your group in those particular areas and how to kind of take what you learn from that and actually put it in your game.
Yeah, it might seem similar, but each time you look at a way you can craft your game or a way that you're going to play your game, being very aware of what the needs and wants of the players in your group is very important, because if you're on that narrow path, you're just making the game for yourself or what you think is cool, and that might not reach everybody as well as you think it would.
Yeah, the goal with any role-playing game, I was going to say D&D, but any role-playing game is for everyone to get the engagement they want with a game, to get what they want from it, but also maybe have something a little extra to take away from it. And with that in mind, we're going to start with the separation of the people who are very rules as written versus the rule of cool.
And we both stand on kind of an opposite spectrum, at least a little bit, because you were very rules as written, I would say, when you first started. Or at least trying to control a game enough to get it to keep going.
No, not really. I started very much as a very open-ended rule of cool, and I didn't even understand it. At the time, I was just going with whatever seemed cool. I remember the first time I DM'd, it was back in Michigan, and the group of people I was playing with were like, none of our people want to DM right now. Here's a module. How about you run this? And I don't remember the exact name of it. It was a Ravenloft module. It was the Siege of Lord Soth's Castle. And I think we only got through 20 pages of it, if that. Most of it I don't remember. But the one point that sticks out to me is at some point one of the players got cripped by a suit of animated armor. Or I don't remember what the creature was. And when I gave the description, I was like, and it knocked your teeth out. Like just chitlets rolling down the gully. And for some reason that stuck with that character, and later on they killed a skeleton, and for whatever reason I described that the skeleton was an orcish skeleton. And then one of the characters was like, well, I'm a carpenter. Is there any way I can like cobble together dentures for this guy? And I was like, yes, you can. Now, that was a running joke throughout the next couple of hours for that night. But it was something silly, it was kind of cool, and although most of it doesn't stick with me at all, that is a moment I remember.
And that's what's really good about the rule of cool. Like, you can make some events that are very memorable, epic, they define characters, and they allow people to really feel a freeing moment of enjoyment and excitement.
Sure, sometimes they don't necessarily have to be epic. It might be comedy, like the teeth thing that I just said. Another memory I have from one of the earlier times that I played really early on, someone's dad was running D&D for us, and we were in a frozen area, and then he was like, oh, it's a frost giant. And I don't know why. At some point in the game, we picked up a bag of salt, and we were a bunch of kids, and we were like, salt destroys ice. Frost giant. We're going to throw this bag of salt at him. And the dude was like, cool.
He starts melting.
He starts melting.
That's an awesome DM. That's a cool, because especially when for kids, like, hey guys, problem solving works, and you can have fun. You can feel proud of figuring out problems.
Yeah. Okay, so we've thrown some examples of rule of cool. Rules as written, I guess the examples are really confining.
Well, it's kind of like, okay, so I want to jump off the table, and I want to swing from the chandelier, and then I want to jump down on somebody and attack them. And the thing is, or like, okay, well, we can pull out improvised weapon tables. Let me go into the book real quick. Let me pull out all of these things.
Yeah.
Let me make sure that we're doing this in a rigid sense. And honestly, a lot of DMs that run rules as written rather just say, I don't know the rules for that. And a lot of them, I think, get trapped in the idea of, well, since I don't know the rules for that, it's not a thing that we're going to do.
Yeah, I think that happens a lot. The other limitation is, like, the trident. It's a good, interesting thing. It's a two-handed weapon. But in theory, you could kind of use it one-handed for certain aspects. But some DMs will jump on you for it, some won't. It's one of those kind of gray areas. And a rules as written DM is just going to tell you no. Whereas a rule of cool DM will be like, well, is that the flavor you want for your character? Okay, cool. If it doesn't mechanically completely destroy my game, you're using your trident one-handed. Whatever.
So we kind of got some cursory examples, but what I would really like to do actually is go into and let's break down rule of cool and rule as written as far as like what we think each of the benefits of the rule of cool can be, like its best benefits. Why if your rules as written DM, you might want to start adding and sprinkling rules of cool in. And then what I would like to ask is, okay, so now that we've looked at all that, what do you got to watch out for when you're jumping into that world?
So, you were already starting to set this up before when you described the example of jumping on the table, swinging on the chandelier. For a rules as written DM, the moment you go, okay, well, I want to jump on the table, I want to swing on the chandelier, and then I want to kick that guy. Now I have to go, as a rules as written DM, I have to go, okay, well, is the table something difficult enough that I need an acrobatics check to jump on the table? Is that an action, or can I save the action for him swinging on the chandelier, or is the action the attack that he wants to do at the end? Now, really, all of that could just be movement, but if your rules is written, every time that you had a instance in which you had to use an acrobatics check, not because the terrain caused it to you, but because you chose to take the action of somersaulting onto the table, jumping up. Each one of those is a separate action, and you're limited in your action economy how much you can actually do in a turn. It gives you the skeleton, the structure that you require for the game to move forward. And sometimes that structure can cause some shakiness with players that have a broader understanding of certain mathematical concepts. But when you push some of that suspension of disbelief to the side and just go, no, this is the mechanic and this is how it needs to be, stop trying to move outside of that to try and edge out that extra mechanical,
min-max, or try to use role-playing in order to have a mechanical advantage in some way, but like actively looking for that mechanical advantage.
Yeah, an example in that, back in 3.5, something that drove you crazy at first was the diagonal movement.
Why can't I just move 5 feet diagonally?
Now, mathematically, it's 5, then what, 5.5 or whatever?
It's 5, then... Yeah, it does some weird stuff,
well,
so that after 3, it turns back into 15.
Yeah, and for you, part of what caused that problem is you were playing a flying character and you had a pole arm and you were like, well, if the movement works this way, the reach should work this way.
And it doesn't.
And it doesn't, so it caused this spasm in your brain where your knowledge of mathematics versus the knowledge of the mechanics were just not meshing.
Yeah, the world didn't work anymore. Like, the world was like, this world can't make sense because the distance of this and the distance of, you know what I mean? Like, they have to be proportionate or else...
Yeah, it creates this weird area, especially if you have a broader grasp of certain mathematical or mechanical effects.
But the benefit, though, of it, the benefit of the rules is written is that you have a containment to balance. Nothing your characters are ever going to do is going to be something that whacks balance horribly. You might do it, but nothing your players come up with is ever going to be something that threatens your balance.
Yeah, the rules is written builds, like I said, it builds this spine for your game to have this good structure, so you have this baseline that tells you if A then B. And because of that, you can run your game, you have the structure you need, so it's not just zany outside of the box crazy stuff.
And zany outside of the box crazy stuff is cool for some folks, and it can be really good as well. The only thing about it that can be difficult, like, and we'll get to that later more, is it can be hard to control. And so rules as written gives you a control. It gives you that control base, like you said, a base from which to work on. And people that are rules as written should begin to think about how they can move from that base and free themselves up. They know they have the skeleton. They know they have that base. They know they don't have to improv. Well, you're a DM. I'm not a DM. Well, give me an example of a mechanical process that the characters might have qualms about.
How does deciding to ride a large player character work for a small character?
Yeah, how does writing a large player character work for a small character? So, well, they want to do it. I'm going to let them do it. It's whatever. And you don't know what the rules are. Yeah, you might just come up with a rule and be like, well, that works. And it does. But then maybe later, for a reason you couldn't have foretold, the characters begin to abuse that new rule that you made a standard for. Well, where it's cool for you guys to do this while you're flying. Or, while you're, flying on the back of this other guy or something. Whereas rules is written, you get the ability to go, no, I already know how that works. And so I can give it to them and it be within a rule set that doesn't mess up my organization.
Yeah, it gives you the backbone. And if you don't have that backbone, you can't go anywhere with it. For writing a player character, for rules as written, there really isn't anything in there. There's rules for writing a creature. There's also rules for writing an intelligent non-player character. And I think in the context of rules as written, that is the closest you're going to get.
Okay, so you don't even know the rule, but knowing the rules allows you to be more free in your rule of cool.
Yeah. So we're going to talk benefits of the rules as written. So now we go over to the rule of cool. And the rule of cool, the benefits are the imagination of your players and yourself is really the only limiter at first. And before we mention the jumping off the table, the chandelier, the kick, the rules as written individual has a lot of difficulties with that. Whereas the rule of cool goes, all right, yeah, sure, give me an acrobatics check and then maybe a jump check, and it's all rolled into one action. And it's like, okay, cool, yeah. I like it. That's cool. Let's do it.
One of the things I always wanted to do as a Rules of Cool DM, as a player too, is I always wanted to start the game with like a pair of swords or a pair of maces, and they would each be named. And I just paid the starting gold package in order to get those weapons. But I wouldn't trade, those were part of my character. Man, it would be really neat if I could turn these into powerful weapons as I leveled up. I feel like I never really got a player that tried to do anything like that, so I never did it for anybody. And at the same time, I never really got the opportunity to do it myself. But I always felt like that would have been a cool, because then you're invested in your weapon even. It's another character investment.
It's definitely a great character investment. If you look at a lot of written characters, the Drist has the two sabers that he's had his entire adventuring career. In Dragonlance, you've got Flint. I forget the name of his axe, but he's had it since before the stories were even written.
Every Jedi builds their own lightsaber.
Yeah, and for the longest time, that would have been more of a rule of cool area. But in 3.5, towards the end of 3.5's run, they were like, this is a really cool idea. We should build mechanics for it for those people who are very rules as written and can't break themselves from those bindings. And they built a system that allowed you to do that as well, which was really neat. And for me, gave me another structure point for my more loose rules.
And so if you're a rules is cool person, then you want to be able to, like, make sure, oh, I want to give him this really cool weapon, but at the same time I don't want to, like, bust out this monster manual and the next thing that says it's supposed to be able to, like, fight them, it just gets murked, or it doesn't work the way I want to and I have to fudge a bit too much. Because usually if your rules are cool, you're fudging stuff anyway. You're doing shared imagination land. You're not trying to tell people they can't do things. But if you have this to at least understand, like, oh, here's a list of how to make your own weapon. Yeah, I'm not going to be as rigid as this, but I understand where they're saying the balance is, so I'll lean that way. And that way I make sure I'm a little bit more structured.
Yeah, for the rules of cool, sort of the flow, if you don't have that backbone from the rules as written, you can fall off into areas where balance ceases to be something you can follow in the game.
Yeah, like players can't understand what the next level of it's so mercurial that you can't tell where danger sits or where stakes are, because everything is really at the whim of each of the players and the DM.
It can become a very dangerous area to it can become a really dangerous area to walk into. Especially if you have abusive players who will take advantage of your open interpretation of rules. And when you're trying to keep things open for the sake of driving the plot, of driving the story, of creating drama, of creating those beautiful moments, sometimes you'll run into a situation where one player who keeps notes and is that sort of meticulous player, 5, 6, 7 sessions or maybe even months down the road goes, you remember back in January when you let Jim frickin' ride Bob across the battlefield so he got an extra like 60 feet of movement so he could place that fireball in just the right spot? Yeah, but that was the moment where it was cool. It drove the story. It made this beautiful moment.
Well, no, but I want to do it now, and if you don't let me, then you're unfair.
Yeah, and yeah, you can run into that, and that it's unfortunate. But on both sides of it, you set this precedent where you let it happen once, and it leaves this impression in the players that maybe we can do it again. And then it turns into this, well, how can we do it abusively, but not blatantly abusively? And then eventually it just becomes, well...
I mean, it can even be like, how can we do this and make it the coolest it can be, but... You know, and it's an unconscious abuse because...
I've got an example of an unconscious abuse, actually. I was running for a party. I was the DM. And they got a portable hole. And they found themselves in a dungeon where there were a lot of gates or portcullis or, you know, things that were difficult for them to traverse in theory. But then they were like, well, what is if we just put the portable hole in the wall? We put everyone in. One person stays on the other side, pulls it off, reaches their arm through, slaps a portable hole in the wall. And I mean,
might have been us.
Yeah, I don't remember which group it was, but it's a thing. And I was like, at the time, I was like, yeah, that's cool. But then it became a thing where that group was like, okay, we're going to throw everybody into the portable hole. And then the guy that stays out is going to frisbee throw it at the wall across the gate. I'm like, okay. Come on, guys. I was cool with you using it in some areas, but now you're like turning it into a paratroop drop weapon, and it started getting crazy.
Yeah, okay, so we're going to put everybody in the portable hole, and then we're going to have this carrier pigeon trained to carry it across the country, and that's how we're going to travel from now on. Which could be cool.
That's a cool concept.
But, here's the thing, though. That could be really cool. Now, if you're a rules is cool DM, and you're also really good at coming up with stuff on the fly, which usually if your rules are cool, that's where you have to lie. And we'll get more into that later. But unless you come up with some other way to take that from, and that's another thing, you can't really just give them everything and then take it away from them, because that doesn't work either. Because then they don't, and like nothing actually belongs to the player.
No, it doesn't keep the flow. I mean, again, where I gave that first example where someone rode someone and then later on, I'm like, no, I don't like that because it doesn't really mesh with this fight well. You can't do that entirely. You gotta, if you're going to say no, find a reason. And the reason can't just be, it fucks with the mechanics of this fight. Give a reason that is a story element reason or something like that.
Yeah, but I mean, like for instance, with the idea that the portable hole, and say you said yes, yeah, you got, oh my god, you guys found a way to get the carrier pigeon trained, you paid the money and it's traveling a quarter, and I'm gonna let you guys do that. Well, mountains aren't a difficulty for your player anymore. Like, if you're really good on your feet, you can make new dangers, new monsters that are in the sky to attack, things like that, and it can be really neat. But if you aren't good on your feet, getting yourself in those situations, suddenly the obstacles that you built are just gone. You don't have those steps anymore in the story. The pace, like for me, one of the problems I was always having, trying to be rules is cool, is if I let too much power come into my players, unless I was taking it away from them, which is almost unfair. Like, oh, you know what? Somebody comes and now they stole your van while you guys were away from it. Story element. Now you got to track down your van because your van was too overpowered.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. But I wasn't really good on the improv of it to be able to say with the rules of cool, like, oh, this is how I'm going to put a new obstacle, a bigger obstacle, a better obstacle in front of you.
I think honestly, for the purposes of D&D, travel should be a difficult thing, not like insanely difficult, but it should come with some difficulties for maybe the first 7, 8, maybe 9 levels. After that, the party really should have the ability to overcome most basic travel hazards. By that level, your spellcasters can probably make food, they can purify food, they can probably even circumvent a lot of travel situations. So eventually travel shouldn't be this main drama point. You create the drama with other situations around it.
Well, it depends too on that. I mean, D&D. But like, say you're smugglers in a Star Wars story. Like, travel might be one of the primary drivers of your tension. It's really game dependent.
It is game dependent, but even in a game where you're playing a smuggler,
oh, the moments of travel really aren't the highest moments.
Yeah,
of tension.
the moments of travel aren't the interludes where you're evading an Imperial Star Destroyer or
skill checks,
or it's a great place for a skill challenge.
Or skill challenge.
A skill challenge. Or you're being pursued by bounty hunters or something like that. But those are the highlights of the travel. The travel itself, most of it's just, I jumped in hyperspace on the hyperspace lane. For a modern thing, it would be I jumped in my car or I jumped in a plane. Like, there is a point at which you attain a certain level of being able to be mobile. Which is what, for D&D, which was what we mostly talk about, once you hit that level, you have, I think it's called Wind Walk or Cloud Walk, where you can turn a bunch of people into clouds and you guys just fly over terrain for like 30 hours or something. That's probably overshooting what the actual spell is, but you have these methods that make general travel significantly easier.
So, one of the cool things you can do if you want to do rules as written is find a way in your role-playing to bring out the challenges of travel. A lot of people don't run encumbrance. A lot of people don't run weight and exhaustion and sleep. They'll run sleep like, is there an encounter tonight? Do they get a full night's rest?
Well, for the rules as written individual, in the current format, if you are taking what is considered a long rest, in that 8-hour period, you can have up to an hour's worth of interruption and still gain the benefits of a long rest.
And they did that so that people wouldn't get caught by probably like people who just roll random encounter checks and then they just get in this loop of sleep. Oh shit, we got encountered. We got busted out of our sleep. Sleep. Oh wait, we got encountered. Busted out of our sleep. And they never get sleep. And their rules lawyer DM probably then makes them suffer all the exhaustion penalties. But it can be a tool too.
No, it can be a tool, and you just you have to find the right places to use it. But I've played in some games where the DM is a stickler about you need to make sure your encumbrance is right. You need to make sure that you are not just writing down and buying your rations and water, but you're actually marking them off. I'm trying to think. The exhaustion rules.
What kind of environment did that create?
It became very mechanical, and it wasn't fun for me, but the other players who had played in this format for an extended period of time, for them it was natural. So it's a situation group to group, how your players react to that situation. A lot of DMs, in my opinion, shirk some of those rules because it becomes a lot of extra and, in their opinion, unnecessary bookkeeping.
But if you know the rules and you have that structure, that backbone built, what you can do is you can okay, you guys are going to a mountain pass. Well, you know what? Now I'm going to inform you beforehand. Hey, you guys need to check your rations and all of your weight stuff so you're going to make it for this trip. And now during that small period of rough travel, I can bring out those rules and say, well, now we have some tension I can build. You know, I rolled an event, and you guys have to roll skill checks because like a pack animal slipped, and so now we have an event here for you guys to have to. Oh, what happens? Oh, you failed your rolls on this event. I'm taking a third of your rations that you have away from. They were stored in that pack animal.
Yeah, that is an interesting way to approach it, and for me, even when I was really hardcore on the rules, some moments like that, if they drove the drama of the situation, were worth putting in there. But oftentimes, some of those things don't help the drama, the flow of the story. And when that happens, it becomes more of a cumbersome. It becomes more of a cumbersome situation than a good situation for the story, in my opinion. For someone who likes to have that structure and likes that in their game, it's perfect for their game. If their players are having fun and they don't mind that sort of mechanical grind, then more power to them. I like to shirk some of those rules because I think, unlike when I was younger where we ran 9, 8, 12-hour sessions, I kind of want to keep us in that like 4 to 6 hour range now, which the 6 hours is still a bigger time investment, but 4 hours really is kind of that sweet spot in my opinion now. And when you have to maintain all of this extra bookkeeping, it really eats away the minutes. And when you're losing those minutes, you're losing the opportunity to tell more of the story.
Yeah, the more rules is written you get, the more you either need to have an eidetic memory about rules, or you need to have tool sets available to you that are readily available for you to, like a DM screen, your own DM screen with your own charts right there and your own notepads. But like you said earlier, it comes down to each group. The whole point is you're there to have fun. Everybody should have fun, which means you're all agreeing on a reality. You're all agreeing on a rule set. And so rule is cool works. If everybody wants to be like, 1 30-second dragon, 1 30-second giant, and 12 30-second leprechaun with a dash of, illithid, then, and everybody else is cool with that and they're having fun, and they're doing wild, crazy things, like 2 wild, crazy guys, then that's cool. But if there's somebody who wants that, and they're in a rules is written world, they ain't gonna have the fun they want. If everybody needs to know before they make a decision what the rules state on how everything works. If you're a rules is cooler free world DM, what's going to happen is they're going to get locked up because they need structure for them to know. Like, for instance, if you're willing, there are some players, like, you walk into a room and if a player goes, "Are there any torches in this room?" You might go, "Well, there wasn't a torch that was, like unlit torches, for instance. There wasn't a torch in this room now, but, I just want to see where he goes with this." Yeah, actually, and there's a pile of boxes over in the corner, and if you look, there's actually a couple torches on the top of it. Oh, if it's rules as written players, like, it's going to be, I'm going to roll, can I see what's in the room? And then you're going to list what's in the room. And they're not going to ask you ever if there's a torch there, because they need to know what's there before they make any decisions.
Depending on how mechanical your group is, and I mean, this again is situational from group to group.
And there's no judgment on what type of player you are or what group you are.
No, certainly not. But some DMs, instead of letting people ask questions and then kind of building off of what questions are asked, they make a hyper in-depth description of their rooms. So if they didn't say there was a torch there, they might even get a little frustrated if you start asking questions about stuff outside of what they've already described.
Did I say there was a torch in the room? I would have told you if there was a torch in the room.
And again, if that is the group that you are comfortable in and the group that you're having fun in, then, that's what matters for you.
So how do you determine whether your players are leaning for the rule of cool or leaning for the rules as written? I think one of the best ways to identify it is to determine whether or not they broadly come up with ideas really quickly on things you may not have yet mentioned, or they reach for imaginative ideas, they reach for imaginative things to see if they can incorporate into their play.
I've found the best way for me to determine where my party sits, where my players sit, is really just to jump into a game and see how they interact with the world. If they're asking questions and they're jumping around with kind of out-of-the-box ideas, then I know they're more open to a more loose interpretation of things. And in that context, I'll start being a little more open to the rules of cool. Where crazy things like having someone decide to throw the kobold across the room because he's the rogue and they want to use him as a dart to do some sort of attack. I'm like, okay, I'll figure out how to do that, but sure, we'll do that. And then for people who don't come up with those ideas and don't ask those kind of questions, I know we're leaning more to the base rules, and we don't really want to come outside of that. And the best way to really feel that out is just to do a little bit of the role playing. Honestly, maybe a couple of combat encounters, and then just do a quick 5-room dungeon. It's very basic. You give them 2 encounters, 2 puzzles, and a role-playing room. And see what they do in that 5-room dungeon. If you want to go to 6, you can do a red herring in there just to see how they react to something like that. And you will very quickly feel out where your players are and what they want from the world.
How do you tell the difference between a wallflower and a rules as written, like I need structure to know what's in the world before I interact with it kind of player?
I don't...
Well, okay, so for instance, there might be a person who, in their mind, is very, free, wants to, thinks the world can be anything they want it to, anything can happen. As long as we all agree on it, anything can happen. It's amazing.
Okay.
But they're a wallflower player, which means, they don't talk much, they don't interact too much, they kind of follow the lead of other players, they don't drive the plot as much, they're kind of, a lot of the time they're, it's because they're shy when it comes to making decisions like that. If you had a rules as written player, somebody that had to have a very structured world in order to start interacting with it and respond to it, because he knows this is how I can interact with this thing because it says right here this is how interaction works. They don't interact much if you're doing the rules of cool stuff. If you're okay, what do you guys want to do? It's up in the air. How do you tell if it's a rules as written person or if it's a wallflower? What can you give them in order to flesh out the differences?
Well, the first step for you as a DM is to make sure that you constantly come back to address them. You let the other players do what they're doing in the room, and then you come back and you're, John, what are you doing? John, do you wanna mess with that box? Do you want to check the door? Sometimes you have to literally throw the baited hook into someone's mouth, and you might throw 5 or 6 hooks in there and they won't bite down and follow it. But if you can get one time for them to bite down, then you'll start to see where their mind is on the situation.
Okay, so you just keep interacting with them, and so if it's a rules as written person, you're like, look, I'm giving you the stuff that you can interact with, so you clearly know at least, and there might be other stuff too if you come up with it, but what I'm letting you know is this is a thing you can do within the rule sets and the world set, and if you have to do it over and over again, and somebody comes back with like, well, is there anything like this I can use with this to make this thing happen? You go, oh, okay, so that's the rules is cool. But if the person's like, oh, okay, well, in my pack, it says right here I have a torch, and I read that the torch says that it can light other things like this, and you said earlier in the room there was a this thing, so I would like to take the torch from my pack, and can I go over there to do this with that right now?
Yeah, generally, if you've got a very rules as written player, they're not going to have outside of the box ideas. But if you continue to probe them with the opportunity, just drop hints of ideas. Don't feed them the entire thought. You might find that they can loosen up. But if they're not loosening up and you're not having any success with it during the game, it's one of those situations where you just have to be an adult and have a conversation on the side after the game, before the game, and just honestly ask them where their mind is on the situation. And if they're a very rules as written type of player, you just need to make a point of still keeping the world within their purview.
Their rule set.
Their rule set. And it doesn't mean that you can't do any rules of cool type things. You just have to make a point of keeping the rules of cool close enough to the system that it's not completely world breaking for those players.
Or if you come up with some kind of new rule or new interaction, the moment it comes up, you discuss it with the party, everybody decides to agree on a thing, and then the next time it comes into play, you don't make up a different rule for it. Because that rule of the rule as a written kind of player, I know is the kind of player that goes, well, no, look, this is the way it worked before, and the way I've been building this, or the way I've been interacting, is because I know this works this way. So you can't have it work this way now and then not work this way later, because now you're messing with my understanding of how the rule set works.
Yeah.
So if you're going to go rules is cool and go, yeah, okay, I will let you fly and do that, you got to understand, from now on, anybody in the same situation can do that unless you come up with a plot reason for the mechanics themselves to change.
But in my opinion, if you're doing rules of cool, that's still important for you to keep a mind of anyways. The moment you stop being mindful of that is the moment that you're teetering over that line of what is acceptable for rules of cool, and you're starting to go to the not so great side of it where almost anything can happen, which can be interesting, but inside of a structured game it becomes cumbersome. So the next thing that we're going to kind of jump into is the different mindsets between a more story-driven game and a more traditional hack and slash dungeon crawl style of game.
So for every person who plays D&D, a lot of you might know Diablo. Some of you might even know that it was a role-playing game based on the D20 system. And it was, right? Yeah, it was.
They built a game for it in the D20 system after the fact.
Yeah, no, I don't mean that it was a... No, it was a PC game first.
It sounded like you were saying one inspired the other versus the other way around.
No, what I mean is they also made a role-playing game for it. It was like almost like a world for D&D.
It was a world for D&D, but
it was...
It was
pure hack and slash.
Pure hack and slash. It was a constant dungeon crawler. it overloaded the players with magic items that, much like the computer game, were random as shit, really.
Yeah, and that's the thing is it's treasure. It was like pretty much after certain levels, almost every encounter dropped magic items, and then you just roll on a magic generator table. It was for people who love to get fat loots. It was for people who love to just keep blowing through monsters and feel really powerful. And some people love that. That's the thing they love. They love hack and slash. They love to level up and feel super cool with all their treasures.
So this topic, in my opinion, does harken back to our previous topic, the rule of cool and the rules as written. And I think that a lot of the hack and slash players, although there are a healthy portion of them that really would prefer the rule of cool, the people who really get into the dungeon grind, the hack master, let's kill things, move from room to room, and the only driving plot for them is to kill the big bad at the end of the dungeon. For them, the more rules as written approach, I think, is more appealing. And I also think that their play style, although they're playing the role-playing game, they think of it more as, I'm the fighter, you're the rogue. It's not about the character interactions, it's about the fight. It's the tactical fight. Let's tactically grind through this room. We'll do a SWAT style cutting the room as we go into the next room.
And I think some of that too is like the reason some of those people lean towards the rules as written is that they want to make sure they still have a modicum of control. They want to know that they understand the tactics on the field currently, so they don't feel like they're lost.
Yeah, and once you start adding the rules of cool, again, we harken all the way back to the table chandelier. For a group that's dealing with a very tactical hack and slash approach, it turns into, once you add these different splashes of the mechanics, it can change the entire paradigm of how they engage with the world and how they engage with the dungeon or how they engage with whatever they're engaging in. For them, it's better for it to have one solid structure that never shifts.
With hack and slash, like for me, I'm not a hack and slash player. I could probably go 10 sessions without a combat. If the story was engaging and there were skill checks and other checks, that would be just as fine with me, honestly. But with the hack and slash, if I play something that's just so grindy, I get real bored really quick. This is the thing. If I'm going to play a hack and slash game, right? I've got a PC game right in there, right? I have an AI I can play against who's going to be better than my DM at making tactical decisions, most likely, if it was a well-designed game.
That's not necessarily true, but okay.
Oh, how about this? The DM might adapt to my tactics, but the AI is going to have probably a better base of tactics.
Possibly, but in a video game, the AI also generally will ramp up its abilities based on the difficulty you have, so your chance to hit might be different, or they both, I get what you're saying, but I can run you through a 120 room dungeon, which is hack and slash heavy, but as long as I put story elements in it, and I give you unique rooms, and I give you unique traps, although it gets kind of grindy because all you're doing is fight after fight after fight, but as long as there's the extra elements that give each fight its little flavor, its pang of uniqueness, that helps kind of edge off the entire, we're in another room. It's 4 goblins.
Hack and slash is a necessary facet of the game. And again, if you have a group that's what they want to play, then that's fine. But if it's the primary focus and your group isn't that into that, it's going to become a mechanical slog. It's going to become slow in the expectation of the pace that they would wish to have. Because if somebody's in a game and they want to expand their character, not in a way that is in combat, but in a way that they're finding other ways to do things, and you're not giving them the opportunity to do that because it's just hack and slash without an interaction with NPCs. But at the same time, if you pull hack and slash out of the game, like combat, if you pull combat out of the game,
D&D has this problem. Since the early editions, there weren't rules for paying the players XP for accomplishing a quest or for doing unique story elements. So there wasn't a reward or a system set up to reward you for I don't know. Let's say you went into a town and the well's broken and you repair the well. There's nowhere in any of what is set up that says, well, you repaired the well. It's a minor quest. It's worth 50 experience. Like, there's no system for it. So a lot of DMs, if you do out of combat interactions, out of combat stuff, they don't reward you. There's no system for it. So they go, oh no, that's a cool thing you did. There was some story shit to it. But that's it. That's what you got. And then when it came to killing 4 goblins, they're like, oh, goblins are worth this. Oh, well, it's super easy. That was easier than fixing the well. But guess what? Oh, you got 25 experience. So it kind of puts this mindset in your players. Well, if we go kill stuff, we get better at killing stuff. And other stuff, but mostly killing. So I think that part of the reason that you have found yourself in a more roleplay-centric mindset was really where we kind of left D&D behind for a few years and we switched over to the White Wolf system. When I made that transition as a DM from one system to the other, I took on this hardline mindset where if we barely touched the dice that night, in my opinion, it was a great night. So it really forced a lot of improv acting out of you guys as players. And really all I did was kind of corral you guys by what realistically, in my mind, the world would do in response to whatever you were enacting on it.
Which is a lot easier to do for a DM, I think, in White Wolf, because really the world is just like a slanted real world. Like, I don't have to balance the way, like, dwarves act in a cultural sense with halflings in a culture. Okay, I don't know. I guess you have to do that in the real world, too, if you're being real about things. Yeah,
I was going to say, what's the difference between a group of Asian people, a group of Hispanic people, and a group of Caucasian people?
I don't know, Steve. How about you tell me? What is the difference between those people?
Okay, I wasn't trying to bait you. That's good. No, I wasn't trying to bait you into saying something improper.
No, I get what you're saying. It's the same thing. What's the difference between an elf, a halfling, and a dwarf? Yeah, it depends where you live and who you know.
Yeah, because for the sake of just talking fantasy races, if you talk to a mountain dwarf who's lived his entire life in the mountain home versus a mountain dwarf who spent most of his time being a blacksmith in a human farming village, sure, there will be similarities.
But their outlook on life is definitely going to be really different from each other.
They're definitely going to have skewed outlooks on life. So I think the biggest separation between running a modern role-playing game, as in a modern setting, versus a pure fantasy setting is magic. And even in White Wolf, there's magic. But at the same time, it's not as fantastical.
Because it's not really known as much. Like in the average person in a D&D world might be like, in most D&D worlds, be like, yo, no, I've heard of the wizard. Once during a pageant, I saw them. They were firing flowers out of the end of the cane sticky thingy. You know, but in you know, if you talk to that person in Vampire, what you just talked to was somebody who has schizophrenia. So you know.
I mean, it depends on how your DM is delivering the world, but as a standard purview, that's definitely true. The fantasy setting, the D&D setting, what some people like to call Fantasyland, it has certain tones. And unless you present to your player before the game starts that this is the tone of your world...
Because there are groups out there that, I mean, there's even, like, I've actually heard of even non-violent role-playing groups. People who just roleplay, they do not like the idea of combat, and even in combat, they don't like the idea of using any dice. It's all kind of like imagine what was the LARP for Vampire called again?
Oh, Mind's Eye Theater.
Imagine Mind's Eye Theater.
But for them, they use rock, paper,
scissors in other rule sets. But imagine somebody who does something like that, where it's just like whoever comes up with the coolest idea wins the combat. Like when you're playing, you know, with action figures and with your friends when you're like 5, you know, bang bang.
I actually have some experience with it, but that experience comes mostly from doing chat room based role playing.
Okay.
where there is no system. You just have to have a mutual respect with the other people that you're playing, that they're not automatically going to just decide that their character can win at everything. Their character is good at everything. They aren't a Mary Sue or a Gary Stu type character.
Yeah, like you're playing house, or like again, you're going back to when you were a kid and you had an action figure, and the other kid had an action figure, and you go, well, my guy's gonna go do this. Well, I want to go shoot at him as he's. Well, no, he can't be shot because he's better. So he shoots this guy, and then you gotta go bang bang, and you bang them against each other, and you get all angry at each other, and you go, no, my guy wins, and you're stupid.
Yeah.
You can't do that. If you're mature about it, you can go, oh, let's just create an improv space, and when we can craft a story all together, and that's the core of role playing itself.
Sure, but when I think of a more story-driven game, I'm not thinking of a systemless game. That's kind of where you fell with the story concept.
Well, I'm just like I'm going to the extremes of each side, like
You
pure
def-
hack
you-
and
you
slash,
definitely-
pure story. What elements do we keep from both of them in order to combine that into what we play or what any role player can play?
You've definitely gone to like the furthest out extreme for this one, but I guess since you started with Diablo for hack and slash, you really did go the full spectrum.
Both ways, yeah, the full. And I get it. It's a spectrum across a range from how much hack and slash you have, and you need to have some combats, and you need to have like if you guys love story, like I still think you need to have some combat, in my opinion. And if you love hack and slash, you still need to have some story elements. It really comes down, and I know it sounds like common sense, but I know there's people out there, and in their life, it's perfectly fine that's what they want. I just want to hack and slash. I don't want to.
I think for me, the breakdown comes between people who just want their characters to be the hero, move forward, and it's very little story. It's just go and kill the bad. And then there's people who want to see character growth. They want to see how their character reacts to difficult times, to happy times. They react to the world. They have character growth.
They use the experience as a way to like get into another skin.
Yeah, and that's where the story elements come in. And story elements can be anything from presenting a setting where goblins are not bad guys, and that can change the entire purview on how your interactions go. Or maybe the characters didn't even know when they got into an area that the goblins weren't bad, so they accidentally murdered what amounts to a bunch of civilians, and then they get into town and they find out, and then they have to deal with that situation, that impact on their character, and that can be really heavy.
Yeah, exactly. Going back to look at the consequences of their actions in a role-playing sense. That's a benefit you gain out of that.
There are benefits you can gain from it, but it can also become a very sticky situation. I've had a player in one of my games that had a very odd, off and on love-hate relationship with their warlock patron, which led to them eventually having to commit a murder of an innocent person to regain their power. And that almost killed that player's drive to run that character, just because the sudden realization of the weight of what they had actually committed was so heavy on them that it actually kind of started to slip outside of the game and burden the player themselves.
Well, I enjoy that kind of moment because I love that kind of question of, how much of this is a construct? How much of this is me in the construct? Can I reflect upon this and become more self-aware in some fashion?
And for some people, that is part of the aspect of playing the game. But for some people, it's just too much. There are topics and ideas that may be too much for your players. And those are things that you need to ensure that you are conscious of informing your players of the type of setting you're presenting them.
Yeah, no, I mean, not to be so PC to say trigger warning, but look, some people are not trying to slip into somebody else's skin. Some people are trying to find their escapism in a healthy way and have fun and get the fuck away from depression, get the fuck away from these things they have to think about. And if you present them with having to think about loss or having to, play all of these deep and introspective story elements, you super weigh it down with that stuff. Like, I mean, because it can add a touch to the character, but at the same time, it can like for instance, how many people play characters and go, "Oh, I'm married, and I have a wife and a kid, and I have to find a way to like support them. They're in danger. I'm actually going to play that, and then I'm actually going to feel real lost when they get hurt." And it's not, just like, oh, well, I'm going to find my vengeance. It's like a full panel range of loss, mourning, vengeance, survivor's guilt. You really explore all those things.
I would say that 90% of my players over the years rarely give any extra thought to any of their familial connections. And that is as much my fault as a DM for not trying to integrate those aspects into the story as it is the player's fault for not building a person. They built a character sheet, but they didn't build a person. And we have started to grow out of that failure, but it's still a slower process because it's a lot of work for the DM because it gives you more pieces on the board that you have to pay attention to. And then it also depends on what kind of story you're telling. If you're putting the players in a setting where there's a war between two nations, then you can build that extra drama with their families depending on where they're at and how close they are to the war. No matter
where they're at, you can make it happen.
You can make it happen, but it's really dependent on what you're doing in the world. If there's a dragon that's maybe demanding tribute from a town, you might get a letter from one of your family members going, "Oh my God, your sister's going to be sacrificed to the dragon." What do you decide to do then? Does your character decide to take up the quest to go kill the dragon, or do you lament the fact that there's nothing you can do about it?
Yeah, but there's still a difference. Like, you can put that in the story all day long, but if the player is somebody who's like, "Okay, well, I'm going to go kill the dragon." Like, okay, well, you're not going to really think, nope, that's it. That's where I'm at. Obviously, that's what the quest is here for. And they're not, like, thinking, like, "Oh, man, I'm going to play the fear of a person who might think that's too big of a challenge for him, and I'm going to try to find, like, what kind of person am I?" But that's the thing is, earlier you said failure. I don't think I would use that connotation. I wouldn't want to put a negative on somebody who isn't playing those story aspects because some people want to play Diablo. Okay, some people want to make a character, and if you're in that group,
I meant failure in a context to our own group and what we were trying to get out of the game.
I get what you're saying.
It wasn't that it was a failure as in, if you're not doing this, you're failing. No, that was not the intention of me saying that.
And again, as a DM and a player, it's important to figure out where, right, like, you sit.
Definitely.
As far as who likes hack and slash, who wants to be more, like, super into the character depth.
Yeah, and that one I think is easier to find out about people. The easiest thing is find out what kind of TV shows they like. If they have interest in TV shows that do a lot of the background and interactions with multiple characters outside of just the main cast, then you kind of get an idea this person wants something deeper. If the person you're talking to just likes spy flicks or action flicks, they're probably going to be leaning more to the other side. Now, I know that's a very broad and easy, like, flung out idea, but at the same time, that is one of the entertainment,
the stories they like to consume.
Yeah.
If they like to watch Judge Dredd and Raid: The Last Redemption, but they don't like to watch, I don't know. See, that's a bit weird because it's different palettes of taste.
There are, and it's not a perfect determinant, but
what's the list of determinants we can think of, like things that might
on how to figure out who prefers hack and slash?
Yeah, hack and slash. I'm wondering, like,
I think the first one, the easiest one, when you fight a group of enemies, who's grabbing the dice and is going, "Okay, what's on the loot table?"
Yeah.
There we go. That's a big indicator.
What's on the loot table is a big one. What about the person who is like, okay, you guys, you see a troll on the road. He's next to an overturned cart, and it looks like he's trying to fix it and round up a sheep You've never seen a troll act this way before, and then the first one's to go, I'm running at it with my sword.
I think if you're going to present that situation, especially if you're trying to do it in a story-driven sort of format, using the words "he's trying to fix it," I think is too on the nose. So you said it was a turned over cart, correct?
Yeah.
So instead of saying it looks like he's trying to fix the cart, since it's a turned over cart, say he's trying to turn it back upright. That can be just because he wants to ruffle through it, or because he's trying to fix it, but you haven't already given the identifier he is fixing it. The problem is with the example you gave.
Well, that's what I meant by it. But I guess using that word.
You use the word fix, which
sets
automatically
sets
the connotation that he is not
destructive.
Bad. He's not destructive. He's not. He's definitely out of the norm. And if you're going to present that situation...
Well, I did say you've never seen a troll do this before.
You did say that, but again, you've given too many identifiers. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, when you fade all the story hooks you can to set that up, and they still go, I want to cut it in two.
Yeah.
That's a guy who enjoys hack and slash.
That's a guy who enjoys hack and slash. I see. You were trying to make the...
Yeah, that's what... Yeah. Like how can you tell...
Because I was going to say, I think it's better for that situation for a story element. For a story element, if you feed enough.
Oh yeah. That's the way I would do it in a story too. Like I wouldn't I would try to. I'm not a good DM on the improv like you, so I would most likely say things like he's trying to fix it, blah blah blah. I might not if I know somebody's looking for those kinds of things. Like if I'm trying to draw it out of somebody to see if they're going to hack and slash or not, I might make it blatant. But if it's somebody I know that likes to engage in those, I'm going to try to make it more of a mysterious thing. Like they're going to uncover it as their character is uncovering it.
There are words you need to be careful of using because they identify too much.
Positive and negative connotations. Okay, so what else we got? So we got the guy who loves the loot, the guy who wants to cut things into no matter what the heck is going on.
The story person who will walk up to everything and try and talk to it.
Everything can be an interactable object. That's a great way to find out who the story guy is. The story guy, the guy who takes the extra moments to be like, okay, I want to bury the person, or I want to, I'm gonna look for trophies on these people that I can turn into a necklace.
Yeah, the trophy keeper or the religious person whose god has a specific burial right, and he makes a point of giving that burial right to everyone that falls in their adventures, be it enemy or friend. Anybody
who makes a character who the concept or premise, I think, revolves around telling, like a bard, telling stories and crafting stories. I think that those people are generally more roleplay leaning. The people who want to retell the party story.
Yeah, the storyteller type characters. I wouldn't just tie that to the bard class. That's short-sighted, I think.
Yeah, any character can be doing it. But if you see a player doing that, he's like, I want to be the guy who constructs the maps for the group and keeps the log of all the things the group's doing because I'm writing a book.
Yeah. Another good story-driven example is the person who makes a point of talking to all the other characters. I think that is a more story-driven player. But again, for me, it's a mixture of all of these aspects into one character or one player at a time that makes, in my opinion, the best person to be sitting at my table.
Oh, yeah. But if you're trying to identify those things so this is what my group is, I want to make sure I'm giving them a game that both they can enjoy and I can enjoy. Identifying some of those aspects of what they like to do, I think, is an important tool.
Certainly.
In a DM's tool bag.
For the loot-loving type player, my first area to kind of test the waters on if they're willing to move away from that concept is pre-generate the loot and give it to the enemies. So if there's a potion in that loot, the enemy could use it. Or if there's a magic item in that list, they can use it. And it creates this... It will create one of two elements. Either it'll be like, this is really interesting because the enemies are starting to do some of the same things we're doing. Or it turns it into this mindset of, oh shit, we need to kill that goblin before he can possibly drink the potion that is our potion. Since they're thinking of it just as the loot.
Oh, so they're like they get to the point where they're like, oh my god, I'm losing loot.
Yeah.
Oh, that's definitely like somebody who's super hacky slashy. Cause
Yeah, but
how about this? At least a little bit. Well, maybe not, but people that hoard loot, that hoard every there are plates. How many plates can I take? I'm not saying that's just. I'm saying that they lean. At least they lean away from the story. They're leaning to mechanics at least, if not hack and slash. They're leaning to like loot.
I don't even know if they're leaning towards loot. That's an entirely different kind of player. I've had some weird situations over the years. I've had a player whose character was obsessed with gathering all writing implements he came across. It was really weird because he never explained the reason. I think if there was an explanation to it,
it was just a quirk, like a character quirk.
It was a weird character quirk with no explanation. I think if there would have been an explanation at the end, or
it could have been
anywhere,
a cool story element somehow.
It could have been a cool story element, but it was just this weird thing where every time they went somewhere, it was like, are there any charcoal pens or pencils? Are there any quills? I'm like, well, shit. Why the fuck would there be a quill in a goddamn dungeon?
Well, I mean, I can think of 1,000.
I could think of 1,000, but it was such a random question, and it came up over and over again. I was like, why the fuck is this guy? And later on, when I looked at his character sheet, seriously, I think we played only for 4 or 5 months. He ended up having like 30 things collected because he'd ask at these weird moments. And I'd be like, would there be something to write with in this room? Yeah, actually, sure. And he just had a collection of them. And wrote them down. And I was like, okay. I mean, that's cool.
Well, if he enjoys that, yeah.
Yeah, no, I worked to it.
I just keep thinking about it, and I go, man, if you actually rolled that into some kind of story, like maybe he's got some kind of OCD about this thing or something, it could make for very interesting. But it being on paper and it being a thing that just kind of pops up, it almost makes it that. I mean, like if I was in that game with that person, I would probably be like, yo, what's up with you and the pencils?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be weird, but, like, I just want to know, bro. Like, what's going on with you?
No, it really... It was super strange, and
There's a pile of treasure right there, and you, like, went for the quill. And I'm just a little confused. I understand that I might not have the best motives as a person because I want that treasure, but I really want to know why you wanted that quill, because... Now I'm wondering if I got a raw deal or like what? Like, do I not know something about quills? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah,
that's a little weird.
The funny thing for me, during the games, I always thought it was weird, but I didn't think about it. It wasn't until like 3 or 4 months after the game ended where I found the character sheet in a stack of character sheets, and I was looking through, and I was like, what the
oh, I remember this guy with the quills.
Yeah, I was like, what the hell? Like, and then I looked at the sheet, and I was like, was there a reason? But yeah, a weird quirk. If someone had added story to that quirk to give it a little more body, that would have been great.
That tells me you'd lean more towards story, but even having the quirk is better than nothing at all.
Having the quirk is better than nothing at all.
It gives something for other players to engage with,
Yeah. Unfortunately, in that game, it was a lot more of a hack slash type group, so the questions were never asked.
Well, how about that? How do you balance? Okay, so say, because you've been a DM before, so many. Yeah, I was like, that one time, that single time that you did.
Those 16, 17 years
of that one time. Yeah. So say you have a couple players that are diehard hack. That's what they want to do. They want to squish goblin heads, and the only roleplay scene they want is you describing the gore of their furious victory. But you also have 2 players in it that, like, what they really crave is interaction with NPCs and devising plans and schemes and hearing about drama and love and etc. etc. If you're a DM, how do you balance the time and the play between that and all that?
All right, so balancing the time I suck at, so I really have no good advice there. But how to create a setting or an area that will interest both both player types, right? Make a multi-layer dungeon that has many rooms. just pick a number. Roll 2d100s. Pick that in any number of rooms, okay? It sounds insane, right?
Yes.
Now, what you do is you do the same thing you do when you're building a big city. You pick a bunch of different groups that have different wants and goals and needs, but they're all monsters. So you got the section with the goblins, you got the section with the orcs, then you have that one area in the cave that has a hazard like ochre jelly or something. You have that one area where they don't know why things are dying, and if the players somehow find their way down there, there's a couple of mimics or something. But then you have these groups and you create the interactions with them where the goblins are trying to take over a portion of the floor that the orcs right now have, and the orcs are at war with the goblins because their haven, their hive area is a holy spot to Grumsh. And then you got the drow way in the bottom who are like, fuck, we don't care what the hell they're doing as long as they're busy killing each other. We can sneak up there every once in a while, grab 2 or 3 orcs, 5 or 6 goblins. We got some slaves to take down here to work our mine. You create this dynamic where the players can come in and just smash face, but then the story-driven players can still be like, hey, let me go into this room first. I'm going to talk to them. And then if I scream bloody murder, you come in and do what you do best.
So, okay, so as a DM, you're the arbiter. If you got 2 people in the group that are hack and slash, and I've seen this before, they might blow up every role-playing possibility. Just, oh, no, I'm pulling my weapon out. Oh, I'm pulling my weapon out. I'm pulling my weapon out.
That'll happen.
How do you, yeah.
There's really only one way to address that situation, and that is to be an adult and have a conversation.
And say, look, your play, and I understand this is what you want to do, but it's beginning to be a bit selfish because other people are wanting to do things that what you're doing is making impossible completely.
Yeah.
And they're not getting a chance to play that.
So the only way you can address that situation where it comes out with the most positive end result, even if that end result maybe isn't a great one, it's going to the person, addressing the issue, saying, hey, look, like you said, the other players would like to roleplay some. Could you stop drawing your sword and just killing everything they talk to? Yeah, and if that person isn't at all receptive to that, I hate to make that suggestion, but maybe it's time to go, hey man, it's been great, but right now, this isn't the table for you anymore. You're creating an unfun environment for everyone here. Maybe not literally everyone, but you're creating an air of discomfort that is not conducive to us all having fun.
And I might be biased because I'm a story guy, but I do feel like usually it'll be more the hack and slash guy that steps on the story guy's foot than it will ever be the story guy stepping on the hack and slash guy's foot. Unless the story guy is a DM and he just doesn't do hack and slash at all. No, you're not allowed to fight.
Yeah, I can see that being a problem. I don't think I've ever presented that problem to the players.
I don't think I've ever encountered a DM who is like, no, we don't do combat at all in any form or fashion. I mean, I've heard of said tables in the mystical far off reaches. And I think the final thing we're going to wrap up on, right, is...
how you prepare your game. Are you a person who takes an in-depth look at preparing your game, or do you just get a couple basic ideas and then improv it to high hell?
And so you have me, who, if I could, I would build a computer program that had everything I needed into it. And it would just answer every question the player could possibly answer with information I've already pre-built, down to the item that's everything in each room, in every room in a city.
Oh, so you'd build a video game?
Yeah, there we go. That's what I was... Yeah, I would just build a video game with words. If I could. But I can't, and trying to usually drowns me more than it helps me.
So I am curious, since that is... we're going to go off on a quick tangent.
Go ahead.
I am curious, as a player, you keep saying that you want more freedom, because if you don't have that freedom, you just go play a video game. But then when you sit in the big chair, you go, I'm just going to throw a video game at you, because that's easier than doing the opposite.
Well, the thing is, okay, so if I'm a player, right, my responsibility is to come to show up. And to show up, participatory and open to other people's ideas. But I don't have to take the full weight and burden of arbitering, knowing the information of everything that could be, and really combining all of it and providing that experience for everybody in an equal, fair, balanced way in time and engagement. All I gotta do is, like, you know, show up and have fun and engage and try to develop a character, etc., and give to the other players what they expect of me, whatever group I'm in.
Okay.
But as a DM, with that extra burden, I'm like, oh, I need to be prepared for all of this, because if I fail at any of it, I didn't show up.
So, you're right. You would be a very over preparer, and for preparation, for pre-prep, that can be okay. I think the biggest flaw from that pre-preparation is that it's very easy for your game to feel like you're railroading your players, and for you to even generate the illusion of choice becomes really difficult.
Yeah, the way I've been trying to think about how I would approach it coming back to a table as a DM. I've been trying to think like, okay, so instead of just building out this entire city, what I can do is I can build these things that are flexible, where I know the level of what I'm kind of building, and therefore...
Give me a better example. Be more clear with your point here.
Okay, so like, for instance, if I'm building a city and I go...
You're building a hamlet.
Okay, I'm building a hamlet, and I go, okay, well, I'm going to build all of it. Okay, so I'm going to have a mayor, and it's going to have a sheriff, and we're also going to have a town council with a burgher, and then there's also going to be a different person who does tax collecting, and we're going to have an executioner. Okay, and
That's already a lot of people for a hamlet.
I know. Well, but I'm building, like, well, either way, like, let's say that's, how many people are in a hamlet?
I don't know. 30, 40, maybe 50.
Oh, okay, never mind then. Let's say it's a mayor, a sheriff, but then I'm going to put some people in the town that are of stature. That, like, oh, the blacksmith, and he actually has a shop, and so he's a little bit of money compared to the other people, and, you know, things like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do what their interpersonal relationships are. So probably in the first minute, I'm going to, how do they all relate to each other and this and that? And then I'm probably going to drop story notes into that, and et cetera, et cetera. That's how I used to do it. Okay. I'm going to build out that whole hamlet, and then whenever the players do, when they walk into it, I'm going to have something prepared for all the things. Well, I know that if they're in this building, then this building is connected to these people that do this. That
so
might have this.
You would almost go with a Gygaxian approach.
Is that what?
For him, when he described a hamlet or any city, it's not just the name of every character in that, or every person in that city. It's also their emotions, their character. Yeah. But then he went so deep as to where they hid their copper in their house.
Yeah, exactly. That's the kind of thing that I would end up building. Like, yeah, so I would want to have everything ready. So if the character was like, oh, we just saw this guy leave a house, I want to go in and see if he's got any special document. Well, okay, let's see. Who's the guy? I have it down. It's right here. Is he connected?
You would over prepare it.
And then the characters, of course, do what they always players do, which is, Hamlet? Yeah, I guess we'll go to the inn, and then in the morning we'll head out. And we'll never come back again before this game dies.
That's one approach that happens, and then the other one is you remember that one NPC that you didn't excuse me, the one NPC you didn't write anything down about? We're gonna talk to him, and they don't know that you didn't write anything down about him, but that's the one they're gonna talk to.
See, that's if you're improv, or like with a little light structure.
So okay. That's how you used to set it up, and you were keen to say used to.
Sorry. So now what? If I ran again, the way I would try to run it is, I would go, okay, is there any political activity happening in this city?
That's a good piece of information.
Okay, yes or no? If yes, what level of intrigue are we talking about? Is it something that the characters could find out about or not? Like at this level, at this stage, unless they do something crazy, insane, is there a way for them to find out about it?
Okay.
And then if there is, I'm building the entry point. And when I build the entry point, what I'm saying is, I'm building the difficulty of the entry point. I can shift that entry point anywhere I need to as long as I know what the difficulty level of the entry is. Like, if I say, in order to uncover this information from talking to the person that you would probably need to be talking to get it, I'm going to say that you'd have to convince him with at least, like, unless it's really good role playing, a 20 on your diplomacy check. Or I'm sorry, let's say in 5th ed terms, a 17 or 16 on your diplomacy check.
You give
Well,
it a
that
good
means
difficulty.
that if I want to easily build multiple ways to get to the story, well, if they decide to pick the person's house who has the information, I know I can put it at the same DC check for the lockpick.
Okay,
That's what I'm trying to say.
I still think that what you're talking about is overstructured. I mean, it can be good to have that information, but I think hardlining the DCs, in my opinion, is too much. When I build a city, I'll pick. Okay, we're talking a hamlet, so let's say 30 people live in this hamlet, right? Of those 30 people, I'll probably pick 5, 6, maybe 7 people that I have names for, predetermined personalities, and a few relationships, even if they're relationships with characters that haven't got names. So we go, okay, the blacksmith. The blacksmith's name is Harold. He's an old grumpy human. He lost a leg, or he lost half of his foot in the war. Whatever, right? So we kind of have this idea of how he interacts with things, kind of. That's about as far as I go with him. I might go, is he married or not? It's a quick yes or no when I'm writing my notes. Is he married? So yes, he has a family. I don't even need the wife's name or the kid's name. I know that they're the wife of Harold. And then if I need to, I have my list of NPC names that I can just go, oh, the female, his wife's Astra. If you guys decide to talk to her, ask about it, whatever. And then I'll make a point of putting notes down as I'm building it, as you guys are playing it. For political structures in town or intrigue things, it comes down to, is it a farming village? Is it a fishing village? Is it a mining village? What sort of organizations would be interested in those things? Is the country that I put you in working on a rebellion? Things like that. And that will just help inform you as a DM. Are those things that I need to put here? Because if they don't serve a purpose for the drama or course of the story, then they're things that you're wasting time on instead of building stuff for your story. Now to the thing you brought up before where you're building multiple hooks. Sure, you can set DCs for it. You can do a lot of different approaches with that. I think if you want to guide your players to a specific point, a specific area, you just need to figure out a way to give that information to 3 or 4, 2 or 3, however many, it depends on how many players you have. Let's say you have 6 players. If you have 6 players, if you can deliver information that will lead them to the same end location in 3 different ways, then you've done it very well. And it probably is where they're going to go because you've created enough interest. Let's say you wanted them to get to another town. For the cleric who asks around, he might ask more in maybe the temple or something like that. And you go, okay, there's a lot of healing necessary over in Almstown. Okay, why is there... We're not really sure. We don't get enough news, but it's something going on over there. And then you get the rogue who asks around more in the underworld kind of crimey area, and he finds out, oh, there's a lot of high-end gambling happening over in Almstown, and there's a lot of people who've crapped out on their bets, and they get jacked up for it. But you might be interested in going there because there's a lot of money to be made. All right, so now you've dropped the second hint. Now you just need to find a reason for one of your other players to have an interesting reason to go to Almstown. And once you have all 3 of these players, even though you have 6 players, you have 3 of them going, now, we don't know where we're going next, but I hear there's something weird going on over in Almstown. And once one person says it, even if the other ones didn't get weird information, they'll go, actually, yeah, that sounds like a neat idea. Let's do that.
So you're like shepherding them.
You're shepherding them, but it doesn't feel like you're railroading them because you've given a very good illusion of choice.
Yeah, see, I like to give the I wish I could build everything and like if there was a way to module out everything, I could always give you choice because I have the answers to whatever it is that you chose, right here, sitting in front of me. But it's too much to balance. It's too much to manage.
You don't need to,
and it ends up making you so dependent on that in a fashion that when you try to improv and you reach for the things, it's much more frustrating to do than if you built from improv in the first place. And built that, you trained that skill.
Yeah,
up.
when you're building larger areas, larger settings, it's always better to do it in broad strokes. For my Friday game, very early on, I knew the name of the town they were mostly interacting with for their first couple of levels of an arc. And then very randomly, as they were going, the characters had come across enough money that they decided they wanted to hire mercenaries. I was like, well, shit, I don't have names for mercenary companies. I haven't even thought about mercenary companies. What the hell am I going to do with this? So I quickly just jotted down like 3 or 4 names. And I was like, general alignment and personality of the person who's going to come talk to you. Because they put feelers out with money, and people are going to come, especially mercenary companies. They're going to show up if there's money involved, right?
Yeah.
Now, I can't remember. Of the 4 names that I came up with, the only one I remember is the Storm Brawlers. And I'm almost 100% positive I stole that name from somewhere. I don't know. Doesn't matter. But the Storm Brawlers are that faction of goblins in Taladar. And the only reason they exist is because these jackasses were like, I want to talk to a mercenary company. And when I wrote down Stormbrawler, I wrote, not shithead goblins. That was my note. That's it.
Okay, and?
They had an interaction. They didn't end up hiring the Stormbrawlers because they charged too high of a fee. But they had a good interaction with the Stormbrawler rep. And as a side note, I was just like, well, if you decide you've got enough money to hire us, we're down in Taladar. You show up in Taladar, look us up. And eventually their story led them to Taladar. And when they got there, they were like, you remember those fucking goblins? They said they were in this city. Let's go look them up. Not to hire them, but just to look them up to see what the hell they were up to in this city. Because it was strange for them to see goblins that were interacting sociably and not causing carnage in a human city. It was a unique experience for them, so they pursued it, but it only exists because originally they were like, shit, we want to hire mercenaries.
And not kill innocent goblins anymore.
Yeah. I mean, shit, it's like the Smugglers Guild that you guys interacted with in your go at the world, that out of my hip pocket I pulled the name Ravenclaw.
Not remembering that it was from Harry Potter.
Yeah, not even thinking it. I thought
it was hilarious when I told you at the end of the session, like, wow, Harry Potter, right? That's, wow, I can't believe you pulled that. And you were like, crap.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize that.
Literally, when I came up with that name, you know what my thought was?
Ravens like the still shiny shit.
Animal part. And I ran through like 20 names that just... And all of a sudden I was like, Ravenclaw. That sounds cool. They're the Ravenclaws.
Your brain was like, pop out the Harry Potter reference.
For me, it wasn't a Harry. Well, I'm sure that probably had some influence.
I'm sure you did not avoid the word Ravenclaw in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
It would have been a lot more noticeable if you called them the Hufflepuff, though. I'll give you that.
The Hufflepuff, yeah. Or the Slytherin.
Yeah. They're a Naga-based mercenary.
Actually, I think now that I'm really thinking about it, Storm Brawlers, I think, is in WoW.
Oh, really?
I think that's a name of one of the orc tribes or
something.
So
So what you're saying is, if you want to improv, one of the tool sets that you can use is just fucking mobbing everybody else's name, because it's just a name.
Is it a cool name?
It's really easy to reach for.
No, it doesn't mess up your flow. Is it a cool name? Use it. If you think something is cool, be it a name, a concept, whatever, steal it, give it a quick polish to make it your own, and use the shit out of it. As long as it drives the drama and story of your game, you're doing the right thing.
As far as improv goes, like Joey used to run Call of Cthulhu one-offs, like one-shots. And so the idea would be, heck, we can't get everybody from our group together tonight, or this or that. And so it would just be like a one night, or like you something happened and you're just like, man, I do not have the energy I need to. What he would do though is he would go, okay, what am I going to do? I'm setting Predator in World War II. What am I going to do? I'm going to do Aliens on the Moon. What am I going to do? And so what he does is he takes things that he knows the material of, and he kind of finds a way to unfold a story where we don't know what it is at first. It's revealed to us slowly that oh crap, what we're doing is we're actually
sometimes
scoping out. Well, like for instance with World War II Predator.
I wasn't there for that.
Okay, yeah, all we knew is that there was something that came out of the sky over Germany, and we thought it was some kind of new plane that they were experimenting with, or that. And so for the whole first stretch of that, as we're going up through the, getting dropped off on the beach and going up through these things and all of this other role play that was in a very dark, very hard to manage world, suddenly now there's Predator, and we're like, oh my god. And it was a struggle not to use out of character information, just to be like, we need to leave and survive.
Joey's improv for those one-offs was really great, but he hijacked the structure usually of two different movies, slapped them together, and put us into the thick of it, which was super great for us for two big reasons. One, as we started to get the reveal of the monstrous aspect of it, it's something that we all had a pop culture reference, and we loved those things. So when we did Terminator, when we did Predator...
I never did Terminator.
We did do a Terminator one.
I never did.
Oh, well, you weren't there for it, but we did do a Terminator one. So there were these great references that we could latch onto, but before we had the monster reference or the bad aspect reference, we also had a world that was also set in one of our movie fandoms. So you started attached to one part, and then as he's bleeding the other part of this into it, it was great. But, and it's pure improv because he's just taking two ideas and slapping them together and then letting you run wild in it. It's fantastic. But then you had people like Travis who would try to run, and his games weren't as entertaining. He was trying to come up with a 100% original idea, and his delivery was just...
Well, it's difficult. It's one of those things that comes with tons of practice. I don't have it. I've fallen on my face as a DM more times than not, because to improv and to control the structure and to be like, a lot of it has to do with confidence. If you lose your confidence, your ability to improv situations really is hindered. Like you can freeze very easily and break down.
I can think of hundreds of times. One of the most memorable ones for me, since you keep bringing up Joey, was the L5R game where you guys were up in the Dragon Mountains with the city being besieged, and there was an idea of how I thought I had described things, and then it turned out being completely the opposite. Where I was painting an image where that image I painted was the exact... Well,
what happened? Explain it, because I don't know.
You were there for it. I
can't remember, but I know that the people listening won't know.
I don't exactly remember. I know that I was trying to paint an image, and I just was not doing good. I wasn't doing... what he thought was happening and what you thought you were saying was happening were two different things.
Yeah. Those images did not coalesce to the same idea.
Yeah, they didn't coalesce at all, and it became such a breaking moment that it completely pulled him out of the game. And then when he tried to address that situation so we could get back to at least a level of, common ground, it pulled me so far out of the game that I was just so flustered and out of it by the end of it that I had absolutely no drive to continue creating for that story. It killed it for him first, and then in trying to find the common ground, it killed it for me. And I think that actually killed that game.
I cannot remember.
I know that I'm probably played in it because it was L5R with you guys.
Yeah.
I know that I like to have the idea of that structure there. I like there to be at least the options, at least the grid work of what DCs I'll use. Just that way I have something to reach for. Because for me, sometimes in the improv even, it's not really coming up with the ideas that's difficult. It's coming up with the ideas that are balanced. Going back to like the first category again that we were talking about tonight. Rule of cool versus rule of law. Improv, trying to stay in rule of cool. If I can come up with story elements, I can keep doing that. I can shoot the crap, with you guys all day on, oh, you want to go into the lair, the thing. Oh, how are you going to do it? Oh, you want to go in with that. Oh, well, if I know that nothing I give you can be abused to really mess me over, I wouldn't have a problem coming up with the ideas. The problem is when I give you as a vampire fucking the ability to ghoul snipers, and then you have snipers with 50 cal, okay, for instance, can I get a Barrett 50 cal? So me as a DM, what did I do? I said,
you looked on the internet.
Yeah, actually, while you guys were still role playing in this, I went and looked up on the internet and said to myself, can I order a Barrett 50 cal right now? Like in real world, if I wanted to order a Barrett 50 cal, like is it possible? Like how expensive are Barrett 50 cals? And I looked online and I found them, and they were actually ridiculously cheap for the amount of damage they do in the game and for what they are in real life. A lot of people could get a 50 cal fucking rifle if like as far as monetarily.
I get your point there.
And so I was like, okay, well that's feasible. With the resources that the game's mechanics say he has, he can buy these guns. I can order them right now. I have the ability to order this gun. So I was like, okay, and we're in this world. That's the rule set I gave all of you. So yeah, I'll give you a Barrett 50 cal. You have access to getting a Barrett 50 cal. And then so he just ghouls girls that are like that are ghouls people that are good at sniping, and then like gives them all Barrett 50 cals, and that's 10 ag, which is damage that can't be like 10. It kills anything almost automatically unless it's a really, really old vampire, like a ridiculous werewolf in full werewolf form. 10 ag is probably going to kill you.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. And so, and there's 4 of those people. Yeah. And they're all, no, I'm sorry, he didn't even ghoul them. Right?
No, he turned them into vampires.
He turned them into vampires, and then he got them 3... What was it when you feed your blood to another vampire multiple times? Like you're like...
Bloodbound.
Bloodbound to you. So he bloodbound 4 vampire snipers to himself that all have Barrett 50 cals. And now this is the thing. On his part, the rules, I gave him the rule set. He looked at that rule set and said, this would be really badass to have. And he got it. And it's my job as a DM to go, okay, well, how do I balance this? And the only way I kept finding myself balancing things was like taking them away from you guys, which isn't cool. That's not a way to do that.
For Vampire, that group was in a very bad position. And we've had this problem a couple times where players have been like, oh, well, I'll just turn a bunch of people into vampires and I'll have my little vampire army. For that particular setting, the reason that other vampires in the story haven't gone, oh, well, fuck it, I'll just create 100 vampires and throw them at someone, is because that makes it very easy for the humans to find out there are vampires.
Which makes other vampires very nervous, and then they come whoop your ass before it becomes a problem.
Yeah. And the other thing is the amount of feeding you would have to do to maintain... Okay, back then, we were playing with, 7 people? 6 people? It was a big group. So imagine that every vampire requires a bare minimum. If they're not doing any other actions, just waking up and going to sleep, you require somewhere between 1 and 3 blood points a day if you're doing no use of your powers at all. And that's a random roll at the beginning of the day. So if you got 7 people, that means you need somewhere between 7 to 21 blood points every day just to wake up.
And what does that mean?
Well, a human body has, I think, 7 or 10 blood points in it. You're supposed to spread that out so you don't kill a person.
So you need 4 or 5 people a day.
If you're gonna murder them, yes.
No, 21 points. So there's 7 points each. You leave them with 3 blood points.
That's them in a hospital.
Well, if there's 4 people, technically you leave them with... Let's say you take 5 blood points from 5 people. That's 25 blood points.
That's a lot of blood. Like, when you do casual feeding that isn't going to be noticed, you're supposed to be taking 1 to 2 blood points per person.
So you need like 10, 11 people.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people. Now, that particular group had 7 vampires, plus plus Joey's extra 4. So 11 vampires. So we need somewhere between 11 to 33 points of blood just to wake up.
That might have been a problem for me too. Running a large group when I'm putting my toes back into the DM world is not a good idea. Especially when I'm trying to run off Rule of Cool and improv. Because it's a lot more to have to balance on the fly.
It is. But it becomes this resource management part for that particular setting, which is why.
Well, I don't mean the blood part. I mean like just in a general sense.
Well, yeah, but no, I mean
like...
talking about that particular point, that's a lot of blood. Like the way they have the actual structure for a city set up for every vampire in a city, I think there's supposed to be 100 humans. So that means that there's a lot of times where we played where there were way more vampires than there should have been in any one given area.
Not really. If it's 1 for 100, that would mean there was 270 in Kuiper's Cove.
Yeah, okay.
That's a lot of vampires for Kuiper's Cove.
Sure. But yeah, that is. Okay, I can see that. You're right.
Yeah, because 10 would be 1,000. No, yeah. So with 27,000, it would be 27 times 10, 270.
Yeah, okay, I guess.
Yeah, it means like a place like fucking New York has like...
Oh, yeah. There would be a lot of them there.
Tens and tens of thousands.
But they also would have
hundreds of thousands.
They would have the population of people
it's necessary to feed off of.
Where if the vampires are feeding appropriately and not just murdering people, that the feeding in the entire process would go unnoticed. But that's an aspect of the game that we didn't touch on, and part of that harkens back to when we were playing those games. We almost approached them more as a superhero game. Not intentionally, but...
Not until we got into Hunter. Then we got into the raw aspects of role-playing and the story elements of being a human and having to deal with this new situation balanced with your ordinary life.
Yeah. But yeah, for a starting DM, it's very easy to get way over your head when you're giving out cool things and not realizing what the impact of those cool things is going to be.
So if you could restart as a DM... if you could hit the reset button and be young again and you could pull 12-hour nights with a little bit of Mountain Dew. If you could go back and pick how you developed as a DM, what would you do if you were a starting DM over again? Like, how would you approach it, improv versus preparation? If you had to prepare for a thing right now, what would you tell your younger self about how to prepare for a session of D&D or anything, really?
What would I tell them? Okay. Huh.
Hey, take a second.
That's.
I don't mind.
What would I tell my younger self? See, I don't know. I went through a lot of stages as a starting DM. Like, when I first started, someone handed me a module, and I just kind of read and ran. That was weird. I would never do that again. And honestly, when I was younger, when we started D&D at your house.
Yeah, through 3rd Ed.
When we started at 3rd Ed, I didn't prepare anything. I got
all improv, 100%.
It was 100%, but the reason it worked is, first, we weren't into the in-depth story. We were having fun
encountering new cool stuff that we hadn't before, interacting with it, and killing it sometimes.
Yeah.
Most of the time. Most of the time, we just killed it.
Yeah. And I mean, really, back then we didn't have a battle map. We didn't have miniatures. We literally were doing our combats on graph paper. We had ridiculous ideas where Paul was playing that big orc that just smashed through walls in caves with no consideration to the structural integrity of caves, and I just went with it.
I want to smash through this wall. What do you roll for strength? I rolled a 18. You break through the wall.
Yeah,
Why?
was...
Because it sounded like it'd be cool.
Yeah, it just was pure improv.
But nobody was trying to break through every single wall after that. It was just like...
No, it was... Maybe...
I think actually, if I remember that correctly, which is crazy, I think the thought that came to my head was we had a split party. And I think the other people in the other spot were in trouble or something.
I remember him breaking...
there was a pool of water with a thing in it at some point in that cave. Which is crazy, because that was like... fucking...
Yeah, that was ago. Forever ago.
14 years ago.
And you remember more about it than I do. The only thing that really stuck out to me was Paul breaking through walls.
I forgot about that part of it.
But back then, it was I didn't think about... I can't say I didn't think about D&D. When I was at school, when I hit lulls, I just grabbed the graph paper. I probably created 3,000 pieces of usable dungeon space that never got used. It was just drawn up. Oh, that's cool. Came up with a description. Oh, there's pools of blood. This is a temple to some evil god. Never got to use it. Never even thought to use it, really. It was just my imagination going crazy. Back then, my imagination was going at about 110 miles an hour, and I didn't really need extra inspiration to come to the table. I just was like, okay. Oh, we're at the table. This is what we're doing tonight.
And that probably instilled a bit of confidence over the years in your ability to kind of roll with things and improv through it.
Yeah, definitely.
And that confidence then kind of makes you better at it. And so it's a good cycle to be in. Like, throw yourself in the ring. Just be like, the heck with it. Let's do it. Let's do some improv. Because it's, again, that improv versus preparedness. Look, be prepared to improv. Yeah. Be prepared to have things ready to make improv 10 times easier.
So, the lessons I took away from the early improv. The biggest thing I learned is, before a game night, take into account what the level of your party is. And pre-scribble some ideas for encounters. Already have their initiatives, their hit points, and what page of the book you have to go to written down on a piece of paper. Because that's part of what slowed us down the most when we played back then. I'd go, oh, we're doing orcs tonight. But I wouldn't prepare a sheet of different orcs. I'd just go, we're doing orcs tonight, and then when we finally got to the cave, I'd open the book and I'd start pulling orcs out. So we would have to, every time we had a new encounter, we had to stop and wait for me to grab the encounter, and then I'd quickly throw the hit points and the initiative down, and then we go. And when I grew from that, I started pre-preparing encounters, but I didn't seed them anywhere. I just had like 5 sheets of paper with different encounters on it, and we just work our way through it as,
So that's one of the things you would tell younger self. Hey, man, just prep like 5 pages of encounters real quick. You're not sure exactly when or where and if you're going to use them, but should it come up, you already got it ready. You got the page it goes to.
Yeah, I'd say do a little bit of prep. The bigger thing I think I'd go back to tell younger me is create a couple of story points so the story stays concise across the board.
What do you mean?
If we're going to start the game or we're going to start a story arc, create a villain. Make sure you present that villain and still run a story that leads to that villain. There were a bunch of times where we'd start on orcs and all of a sudden we were fighting drow and elithids and there was no
sense as to why this thing changed. Yeah, that was something I would always have a problem with if I'm a player. Some play, like again, hack and slash for a story, if you go back to that. A hack and slash player might not have as much of trouble going, I killed an orc in that room, and I killed an Olith in this room, and in the next room there was a dragon, and then after that there was a Tarrasque, and then there was some fairies, and then some hags that, made me drown.
Yeah.
But as somebody who's a role player, like, I want to be like, this is better be like a menagerie wizard's fucking dungeon of making shit happen, because this is, at this point in time, my character's like, if there's not a good story reason for this, I'm in high fantasy. And that's like I'm in an almost non-reality kind of place.
Definitely that. And so the next step of my DMing growth is when we made that transition over to the White Wolf games. When we came to White Wolf, the concept of a story that runs over an arc and having more developed NPCs who have predetermined relationships kind of grew on me. And this is also that time period where story became very important to me and combat started to fall off.
NPCs have consistent motives.
Yes.
It's not, well, I need an NPC and I kind of like this guy, so I'm just going to throw him here because it'd be convenient for this NPC to be there.
Yeah, and so that was a really great developmental phase for where I am now, because back when we were doing 3.5, that early D&D era, our games were more hack and slash and didn't have the consistency. And when we made that transition over, it's like I kind of went through a DMing evolution where I really just wanted story, and I was really lucky that my players just grew with me. They just were like, oh, you don't want to hack and slash anymore? You want to tell us a story? You want us to live in your story? That's what we're going to do. And it was a great experience. We had a lot of fun.
It's really fun because, as a player, that's your story too. And being able to build a really cool story, in my opinion, is a lot more than descriptive. Like, it is different for everybody. But for me, a lot more fun for me than descriptive hack and slash solely,
Yeah. And
but what lesson do you think you learned out of the growth that you developed in a story? You said you did 2 points. Did you really elaborate on what you meant by the 2 plot points? In being concise, like how, like from somebody who doesn't do it, like you said, make a main villain.
Make your villain and then make the story actually lead to the villain. Make it a story that flows through, that has consistency in its sections.
So you build like the sections of your plot outside of improv.
No, it'd be a good idea if I did, but I don't do it.
So you're just saying hold on to the loose concept of, hey, this is my bad guy, and this is where this is kind of going, and whenever I'm feeding them any improv, I need to be kind of leading it in this direction.
Let's use the Friday game. I put the Lich, Percy Havel, in a book. I had no idea what I was going to do with him. I just put him there. It was all improv, right? They released the Lich. The moment they released him, the moment they had this interaction with him, it went from being an improv entity to having structure, because at that moment I had to give it structure for it to make sense in the...
Otherwise you had to back build it. You you just drop this neat thing in the game, and when the players decided to interact with it and actually introduce the new bad guy into your world, you were like, oh, okay, well now that the bad guy's being used, I had a loose idea, I'm going to flesh out exactly what this is.
Exactly.
Because now I have to have it make sense on a consistent basis.
And luckily, I had enough other stuff set up in the background where it still felt paid for. It's not like I just went, oh, I'm slipping this history in, and it's horribly apparent that someone chopped up sections and started shoving bits into the timeline.
So what you're saying is you found ways in your world that already existed that you might have improv'd before, that you're like, okay, well, actually, this will work this way for this reason, because back here, I did this for, they encountered this group of people, so I know this exists. And so what about structure versus improv on time?
Define what you mean by time.
Like, okay, so not just in the creation of the story content, right? But like the difference between showing up and saying, you know what, we're just gonna do what it does. I'm gonna go through this whole thing. If we don't role play at all, we don't role play at all. If, you know, or if we don't hack and slash at all, you know, and there's no combats, there's no combats. It's whatever. Or the idea of coming in and saying, well, because we discussed this before. Well, I want to devote about, you know, 60% of my time to this and
Okay.
30% to this and 10% to this.
You're talking about literally the
Structure.
the structure outline of your session.
Yeah, versus just running an improv, loose, whatever happens.
Okay, so I'm gonna be honest with you. I suck at this part. This is
the time.
This is a part of my DMing that I want to work on, but I do have some ideas. Let's start with where I'm at right now. Since I really just come up with rough ideas for my game, I brush the session in broad strokes before we go in, because I know that the players are going to go in and they're going to pencil in the actual details themselves. They're going to.
And if you do it, they're probably going to, like I said, they're going to go, oh, that's we're going to stay at the inn, and then tomorrow morning we're leaving to this next section of country that you mentioned once 4 sessions ago, and you didn't develop anything on, rather than stay in this town that has, like, I don't know, a 16-room dungeon underneath it.
So my current problem for the time investment structure of my game, if the players are having fun role-playing and are just shopping, or are, for some reason, are having fun being stuck in analysis paralysis, sometimes I'll just let them do their thing. I'll sit back and be like, hey, you guys are making your own fun, and I don't have to do anything. Now, that may sound kind of lazy, but you can only let that happen for so long before people start wanting to throw chairs at each other.
Well, the paralysis analysis, I think that it's something that, like, you are a part of an arbiter. So if we find ourselves not moving the plot forward or developing characters, those are the two things. Whether you're writing a script or a book, or we're creating a story right here, if part of the thing that your player group is attuned to is trying to create a story, does it drive the plot forward, or does it develop what a character is?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't do one of those two things, and we're talking about it with each other, and we get into it over and over and over, then really, as an arbiter, I feel like it'd be great if my DM poked us and said, okay, well, hey guys, this is a thing that's occurring to get you out of this loop.
It definitely is. And this is, I'm going to use an example from my Friday group. They're in this circle analysis paralysis where they're trying, I've put like 4 options in front of them, but they've convinced themselves that all 4 of those options are too dangerous to pursue. And this has been an ongoing discussion while they're handling smaller bullet points throughout the last few sessions. So today, when they started the same conversation they've had now for 4 weeks in a row, I said, okay, enough is enough. I'm going to do something. And what I did is I messaged through the spell sending one of the players with solid information that'll move the plot forward.
I know that the reason that person sent them a message was there's a motive for it that exists in the world that you've created that the players don't know about. But one way I could approach doing that is by going, well, the clock just keeps ticking. So now the 4 options are different. Now there's these 3 options that you have because you didn't do something and the world's getting worse. And eventually, if you don't do anything, I'm going to destroy the world. And then I'm going to find a way for you to get out of that situation, most likely to continue the story somewhere. But if bad things keep happening because you guys are inactive, then that's how it's going to keep going, worse and worse.
The Doomsday Clock has to keep moving forward because it builds drama.
Yeah,
Drama makes it interesting. And you're saying you want plot points to move forward, and your characters can't go to each plot point. So even if they're not just doing the analysis paralysis, let's say you give them path A, B, and C. They decide they're going to go down path C. Path A and B are still moving forward. This isn't a video game where A and B sit statically waiting for you to come to them. So if you follow C all the way down its 6-section path, then you come back, you find out that A and B have progressed down their own chains. So if you want to deal with them, you're dealing with whatever is happening in their story arcs.
And so what you're saying is if you build, that's what you meant earlier when you say you build a few of these story arcs, like a bad guy and maybe more than one bad guy, a couple of different bad guys and a couple of different story arc options on how to get down the story arc or how to deal with the bad guy or deal with some aspect.
Sure.
And so because of that, if they pick one, you have more story generation just by imagining out what these people would keep doing.
Yeah. We can actually use this example from the Friday game. So, when we first started, I knew that I wanted them to go into this dwarven hold. That was a guaranteed end location, right? And I took them there with the intention of driving them down an Orcus-focused storyline, which would have been very interesting for me at the time. On the flip side, I decided for set dressing, in one of the rooms they came across, that there was this bone spear, and I decided to throw a name on it. And it was like Orvith the Dark Spawn, or I don't remember the exact name. But essentially, I was like, oh yeah, that's the spine of this old black dragon. And when I threw that in there, I made it so if they touch it, it does 2d6 acid damage to the person. And I don't know why, but 3 of the players got super fascinated with it. They were like, it's powerful enough to hurt us just by, us touching it. Clearly, it must be a super powerful item that isn't just going to try and kill us. And all of a sudden, I was like, oh, if you guys are going to take that much of an interest in it,
I'm going to turn it into something.
I have to turn it into something. And when I did that, it changed the entire focus of the first arc. So instead of this Orcus thing that I was kind of seeding, but nobody was taking an interest in, I was like, okay, that's still there. We'll see if maybe someone will come back to it. But now we went completely off the tracks, and it still made for a great story. So sometimes when you put set dressing out there, it turns into the main story. If you as a player, having played through my early crazy whatever we were doing, and then the story driven, and then when we transitioned to me being a rules lawyer, pain in the ass, if you could go back and tell me one thing that you'd like to see, starting DM me.
Like when you first started?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that... I think that when we first started, the age we started at, there was no way we were going to super empathize with the idea of the struggles of a common man fighting the supernatural at night in Hunter. You know what I'm saying?
No.
So I'm not. I wouldn't, come to you and go, "Hey, man, you should really think about the internal motivations of each of the." No, that because there's no way. Like we'd be different people. But what I would say is like, hey, you know what you could do? You could prepare entire sections of things, or well, now I mean I'm not a great DM. I don't know a bunch of DM stuff, so I can't be like, this is what you should do. Because right now, as a DM, I'm probably as good as you when you were first starting. I mean, honestly.
You gotta give yourself more credit.
Well, yeah, I guess. But I mean, I could probably improv about as well as you could then. And so, maybe better, but my control. The flaws
As a player, just not DMing advice, but as a player, the only thing you'd go back to say is create story sections? That's...
I don't know. No. I'd say if I had to go back to you when you were youngest, I'd say that you need prep, because that's one of the problems we had a little bit. But honestly, I look in my memory. I don't think back about that. My memory of our time playing was that second era you describe of yourself, where it's the vampire, the white wolf, because you created a good place for story to develop and for things to happen. You were open, and what you found a way to do, though, was use the D10 rule system to make almost anything possible in a feasible difficulty.
I like that system. I still love that system.
If I had to go back to you in that system to tell you anything, I would tell you that don't do it unless you're enjoying it, because your enjoyment is part of it too. You have no obligation to your players to DM all the time if you're not filling up to starting a new group or running 5 groups at once. Like, that's not a necessary thing for you to do. And to have confidence in yourself would be one of the things I would say, is have fucking confidence in yourself. Because a lot of times you get wore out, like, just physically or emotionally drained from coming up with a bunch of stuff and having players that kind of crap out on you, or sessions or groups that crap out on you, and that kind of brings you down. And so I'll just say, don't overextend yourself. It can be fun, but don't make it a chore.
I have to say, during our White Wolf era, I'm really surprised I never really hit full burnout.
I would say you did. I mean, to the point where you actually quit multiple times, where you're like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not DMing anymore. I can't.
Okay, I started to burn out for sure, but I mean full.
Oh, like, I'm never playing anymore. Oh, yeah, I'm surprised you didn't get there either. Because you put yourself through the ringer.
Yeah, I never hit 100% burnout. I definitely was burning it at more than the 2 ends that existed. But I still think I created an interesting enough story for it to hold the interest of my players. And shit, I remember when we were playing up at the Kettle and Damien brought those 2 other people in. I don't even remember their names now. They were people that were a handful of years older than us. Didn't know us at all, really. They knew Damien, but not us. And at least for like 4 or 5 months, I held 2 complete strangers' interest in the game. I don't know how I held... Sometimes I don't know how I hold your guys' interest.
We're all hard up for an escape.
Sure.
Well, it's fun, bro. Like, look, this is the thing. As a DM, you're the arbiter, and you're, like, the burden carrier. And so at this point, in my mind, like, I'm here to have fun with you. If that's what we're doing, then, okay, we're playing charades in another sense. So when you're up there, it's my job to support you and the ditto back, you know? And so we're all in this together.
Yeah.
So... like, I'm trying to meet you halfway.
If I could cut out a portion of our D&D role-playing experience and just, like, hit the erase button. That portion after White Wolf, where the rules lawyering just pretty much killed my love of the hobby.
But I think it also helped you build an understanding of structure. Or like mechanical structure, the need for the access to mechanical structure.
It certainly has influenced my concepts on balance and
one of the things that did spur from that, I think, it was harder to find the same passions for the same games we were playing over and over again, especially when they were blowing up, that we really reached out and found new games to play, new games to be interested in, and really kind of branched a bit more into a couple different things. I mean, we tried to before. Man, I would really love to get back into not the grid hex battle system, the role-playing one, BattleTech, Mech Warrior. BattleTech, right?
Yeah.
And Mech Warrior is the
Mech. Yeah, BattleTech. Mech Warrior is Mech Warrior is the video game.
No, Mech Warrior is the combat system of BattleTech.
Yeah.
The field combat Warhammer 40K fucking version of, like, you don't need to have the role playing game to play Mech Warrior, right? You can just do the combat if you want to.
Yeah, you can just do the combat.
But if you do BattleTech, that's how you do BattleTech's combat.
We barely dipped our toe into that because we couldn't get everyone interested.
Yeah, it was a lot more mechanics work than anybody wanted to put themselves into. But I realize now, some of that, if you understand why it's that, you can balance it and you can be like, we get where the drift is.
Yeah. You can definitely cut down some of those rules, but that is a setting that I'd really like to explore more. I like the setting that lore has created.
And I would love to roleplay inside of it. It sounds like a beautiful way, if you didn't want to play in the system that existed with it, you could do like a D10. You could do like a White Wolf related D10 system in it.
Another setting that we've just barely dipped our toe into, I think we only maybe played 2 or 3 games in it, is Star Wars. And I don't know how much of a Star Wars fan you are.
I really liked playing the Star Wars role-playing games.
How many have you played?
I played with it. Wade in a group with Mike and some other people. And yeah, it was really fun. We had a player in our group that played that stick guy from the Pod Racer in episode 1.
Okay.
That race, and he was a gunslinger, but he had a fascination with the Jedi stuff, and so he wanted to learn how to use 4 lightsabers, and that would have been kind of neat because that was before Grievous. I don't know if Grievous was already in the books. He probably was. I'm not so into Star Wars. I'm like into the fictional canon that was there. It's really strong. I know it's great respect for mad respect for the amount of fucking work that went into that canon that is now gone completely, which kind of sucks too. But yeah, he kind of came up with that, and then later, episode 2 comes out, and there's Commander Grievous, and I'm like, it's fucking Wade's character in the game right there. You just wanted to wield 4 lightsabers and whoop that butt.
That's cool. I think I've only DM'd Star Wars like 2 or 3 times in my entire run of DMing, and it's a universe, it's a setting that I'm a big fan of.
Would you rather DM it or play it? I'm assuming.
No, I'd rather DM it.
Rather DM it. Because are you too worried that a DM would fuck something up about the world that you knew, and so like you'd be like, oh fuck, that's not right.
No.
Oh.
Because I know I'm gonna fuck it up.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a good fucking.
No, I have ideas in my head about stories I'd like to tell in the setting, which I could tell anywhere else, but I think it would be more fun to tell those stories inside of that pre-existing world.
You think that the attachments that that world brings are appropriate for the tone of your story?
No, I'd probably make it a lot darker than Star Wars is. But that's because I have a fascination with a darker setting.
Well, I'm sure the fiction in Star Wars got dark here and there.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the Empire, which is supposed to almost be mimicking the Nazis, so...
Yeah, you've got a prime source of eternal darkness.
Yeah. But I think a lot of the movies keep things in some areas a little more lighthearted and...
Well, especially in Hollywood.
Yeah.
So what you're talking about is Star Wars on Netflix. or Amazon.
Yeah.
Or FX.
Yeah, Star Wars, the Punisher Chronicles. You'd be dealing with the worst sides of things like the Hutt cartels.
So I do wanted to, so I was thinking about how, we talked about how you can identify the types of players in your party for each of the rule of cool versus rule of law, or whether or not you...
Story or hack and slash.
Yeah, have a story or you're doing hack and slash. And earlier I had said that I don't think there's a real way to tell if because that's really a DM decision, improv or the being more structured and prepared with your pre planning for your game. But if I really think about it, I can actually link those back to the other two and go, well, if it's a hack and slash game, you might want to be more prepared. Like you might want to have your whole thing planned out because you can probably get away with it. You can probably get away with something like a module.
Yeah.
But if you have a group that's like really trying to come up with some zany ideas and really like, or even like just come up with ideas that are completely rational, but at the same time like are very role play centric, then you might want to have a more a loose view on how to run the game and have a bit more of a skill built in improvisation. Same with like if you're doing rule of cool, you probably want to be able to improv because when somebody comes up with one of them like a zany idea, if you know the rule system, it's good, but you also want to be able to just go, I can roll with this, I can make this work, I can roll this into however I'm finishing my plot or whatever.
I think feeling out the general thoughts of your group as far as pre-prepared material versus just winging it, the improv, is going to come down to a couple of key factors. The first of those, I think, is the medium by which you're playing. If you're playing online using a virtual tabletop, something like Roll20, Fantasy Grounds, I can't think of any other ones off the top of my head because I suck, but I'm sure there are some. Your groups are going to be able to see...
WebRPG.
Yeah. Your groups are going to see a marked difference in how the game flows when you prepare versus not prepare.
Because you have to not only have all that information, but be able to sometimes enter it in or reach. You can't reach for the certain things you need as quickly and easily when you're.
You have to pre-build your maps. If we're sitting down and we just have one of these Chessex battle maps on, I grab the marker and I just start drawing. And if the room has 3 doors or if it has 1 door, I can just make that shit up as I go, and it doesn't matter.
Like, what's some of the other factors? You said that's one of the factors that you'd say.
Oh, that's a big one. The medium you're playing on will dictate how much you need to prep, because it's gonna hit your players really hard. If you're not prepared, you're gonna eat up a lot of your game time flipping through books.
Well, maybe not. I mean, like maybe if you just conceptually go, oh no, yeah, it's a bird monster that looks like this, and there aren't even any damn rules for it. I'm just gonna make up some HP and do this and that. If you at least know the rules, though, you'll know what the players could technically handle.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Actually, you can improv everything,
but some players might not be okay with that.
Some players will run into some issues with that, but I really think that's something you can get over. The bigger point on this one is for you as a DM to be able to just grab things and go with it requires a lot of DMing experience where you have this understanding of the challenge rating system and abilities that are already existent so you can build your new abilities but not overpower them. So for a starting DM, as far as creatures go, I would do less improv in that area. But like today in my game, I ran Ghost Beholders. I kind of half-assed stole the idea from 4th edition and then stitched it together to what I wanted it to be.
But you knew what kind of damage
since you can't convert a 4th edition creature directly over to 5th edition because the stats are different and the hits are they're just different beasts entirely. You have to read, okay, this ability does that and requires this kind of save. How does that translate over to 5th edition? Or how would it translate back to 3rd edition? And if you have a good grasp of the rules as written for that particular system, you can translate the concept of this ability over to either system.
Yeah, like, this is 3d6 and 3d5. Oh, so I know that's going to be this in 5th ed.
Yeah.
Something to that effect. Okay, so the two things that you said that kind of affect, it's not really the group pulse that you're looking for, it's the DM's pulse, it seems like to me. Because you're saying that the two things that are affecting it were how experienced you were of a DM.
How experienced you are with your system and which medium you're playing with.
Yeah, whether or not you're online or not. Do you think there's anything else that kind of like dictates which is more allowable?
Well, you mentioned that for like a hack and slash game, you want to prep it because it's more of a role-based game, and you're not wrong there. There's also story prep stuff, but again, for those things, I kind of fall in like a middle ground between preparing stuff and improving stuff. I take this broad brushing approach now where we have the big bad guy, and I know what his end goal is, and I kind of build a few bullet points in between there that are very vague, and I just see where the players go with it. And I'm not being very specific because my only two like great references are both ones that my players will possibly view, so...
Well, you have the ability of going back into other games, too. Even in earlier times, you can look at things that you were doing that you might not have realized why you were doing them made them good. So you have other good games you can pull from as far as, like, preparing things.
Sure.
Like, how about this? Did you prepare or did you improv the temple and the city in the Hunter game?
I improv'd 199% of that game.
Okay, but then when we went there and we went down and we did that and we got access to this and we got the sword, you improv the rest of that? You didn't build out anything. Wow.
That game was... I showed up and I started reaching in my butthole, and whatever came out is what happened.
And it played out beautifully then, because...
No, okay, wait, no. I did prepare something for that game. I'm sorry. I read about Earthbound when we started that game.
Okay. The NES game?
No. In White Wolf, an Earthbound is a demon that never went to hell.
Oh, yeah. It fell, but didn't make it all the way to hell.
It fell, but never went to hell. And then I read that...
you were reading Demon the Fallen.
I was reading
Demon when you were DMing Hunter.
Yes. Which is how I read about Legion, which led to...
So what you're saying is sometimes not reading the book necessarily for rules as written, but just for the fun of it can give you the ideas to help you improv in your sessions.
Yeah, so I read about Legion and I thought it was a cool idea. And I found a way to put Legion into the story where we were at. Honestly, looking back at it, it didn't make a whole bunch of sense why that sword was in a temple that was hidden there. But y'all never asked that question, so I never had to answer it.
Yeah, we never went down exactly what it was necessarily or how it got there or anything.
Yeah, that entire... I now remember exactly how that game started. We decided we were going to play Hunter. And the day before we decided to play Hunter, I watched Day of the Dead.
That's why it started off with zombies?
That's why it started off with
at
zombies.
The mansion when I was a journalist.
It started off with zombies and Walmart.
No.
Yes.
That's how that night started. That session.
Or yeah, that's how that session started.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I went the direction I did. I had been reading the Demon the Fallen book, and those ideas as I was pulling...
So it was like the Day of the Dead zombies, but it's caused by the toxic pollution of this demon's negative energy.
Yeah, that's...
You took two ideas and you slammed them together.
Slammed them together, and it created this...
really beautiful tone and really... So that's kind of one of the secrets then to improving. If you can't come up with something just out of your bum, take two things you think are really cool that are closely applicable or find a way to apply them in this particular world or situation or theme.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean...
And then it comes out the other end.
Sometimes...
Your mouth. It started in your butt, and you slam two things together, and it comes out of your mouth as...
Gold.
As a gold improvisational story.
Yeah, it just...
Maybe we should delete this so there's no trade secrets given.
No, it's okay. Yeah, no, it came together. I had the idea for the temple because I was reading one of the offside werewolf books. That's the entire reason we went and fought were-jaguars. And I think in one section I read something about a jade statue, or I don't even remember. And I was like, that's going in.
Yeah, even though we're in Africa and we're
yeah, that's going
dropping
in.
that jade statue right up in there.
Yep. Did it make, like, looking back at it, did it make a whole ton of sense? No.
But it was rule of cool.
It
and we were having badass fun.
Definitely. And... like, that Hunter game went back and forth between being this, like, serious horror drama, and then it had moments where it was, like, a action hero. And then it would go back to serious drama, and then it would go action hero. And then all of a sudden it went, oh my god, we spiraled out of control and everything's going to shit.
Well, there was some spots, too, there where it was, like, fucked up comedy.
Yeah. So, John, we've kind of covered the rule of cool and the rules written and how that can go back and forth. Then we went into the topics of group dynamic for hack and slash and a more plot-driven story game. And we ended with a little bit of how you or I would prepare as a DM and how preparation versus improv impacts the flow of your game. And I think that's about where we're going to leave it for the night. So what are your thoughts about next week?
Well, we talked about some stuff here with role-playing and story modes and things like that. So maybe how as a role player or as a player we can have a better role-playing experience. How about that?
That sounds like it'd be a good topic. While we're on that topic, how about also stepping into the DM shoes and how to make your world engaging or easier to engage with in bite-sized pieces instead of an entire buffet line?
Yeah, that lines up with the role-playing thing and all that. So do we have a third?
I think that's enough for an entire show, if I'm being honest with you.
Okay, well, I guess that's what we're going to have next week then. We're going to talk about role-playing experiences, how you can make them more engaging as a player between players, and how a DM can make your environment cooler.
Your environment, your world, all of that. I think that'll be a good place. So, I think that's where we're going to leave it off. And
remember, if you have any cues, you can hit us in the comments below, and we'll check in at least once or twice a day to make sure we can respond to them. And with that, the last of the coffee's gone. This has been John.
And Steve.
Thank you for tuning in to BullCritter's Corner, and we hope to see you next time.
Take it easy, guys.
Peace.
Out.